Okay, so this is the paragraph. What I was doing was breaking up a paragraph for you. Okay.
Some of his stuff is real.
And this is a very long letter, by the way, so there's a lot more to it. But
Yeah, it really does.
okay, and there was a fellow that wrote a book that Jung was in contact with called Jung and the Reality of Evil or something like that. Now, apparently Dr. Jung disagreed with this book almost entirely. Okay, wasn't David Cox, but David Cox then wrote to Jung with that book as a genesis, okay? And he asked him some questions. And so Jung wrote what in this book is, let me tell you how many pages. Okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 printed pages in one letter. Okay, to David Cox, talking about all these things. Okay, let me read 3 paragraphs. In order to accomplish his task, man is inspired by the Holy Ghost in such a way that he is apt to identify him with his own mind. He even runs the grave risk of believing he has a messianic mission and forces tyrannous doctrines upon his fellow beings. I'm sorry, I've marked this up so much I can't even read it myself. He would do better to disidentify his mind from the small voice within, from dreams and fantasies through which the divine spirit manifests itself. One should listen to the inner voice attentively, intelligently, and critically, because the voice one hears is the influx divinus, consisting, as the Acts of John aptly state, of right and left streams, i.e., the opposites. They have to be clearly separated so that their positive and negative aspects become visible. Acts of John, right?
They had something, yeah.
Only thus can we take up a middle position and discover a middle way. That is the task left to man, and that is the reason why man is so important to God that he decided to become a man himself. Okay. I must apologize for the length of this exposition. Please do not think that I am stating a truth. I am merely trying to present a hypothesis, which might explain the bewildering conclusions resulting from the clash of traditional symbols and psychological experiences. I thought it best to put my cards on the table so that you get a clear picture of my ideas. Although all this sounds as if it were a sort of theological speculation, it is in reality modern man's perplexity expressed in symbolic terms. It is the problem I so often had to deal with in treating the neuroses of intelligent patients. It can be expressed in more scientific, psychological language. For instance, instead of using the term God, you say unconscious. Instead of Christ, self. Instead of incarnation, integration of the unconscious. Instead of salvation or redemption, individuation. Instead of crucifixion or sacrifice on the cross, realization of the 4 functions or of wholeness. I think it is no disadvantage to religious tradition if we can see how far it coincides with psychological experience. On the contrary, it seems to me a most welcome aid to understanding religious traditions. Okay, so I concur with this.
So I have a problem with what he's saying.
Okay.
Based on what I've read in other parts of the collected work, he talks about the transference problem, which Freud had also with his
Right.
patient. And in order to overcome the transference problem, he had to move his patient to the religious side of things. So I don't understand why he then is working within this psychological framework when he could just as easily do it with the religious framework.
Because the religious framework is full of holes.
But yet he said that in order to move a patient out of the transference problem, he moved them to
The religious.
the religious.
He had them find God, okay,
He didn't
but
move them away from that onto psychological individuation. He used, like, these techniques
okay.
were like secret to him, essentially.
Right,
Was
okay.
able to,
So John, I urge you to go back and reread the Edinger lecture, okay? Because in the Edinger lecture, he talks about, and this relates to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Where Dr. Jung made the point to Bill Wilson, who was the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, that you're not going to be cured of your reliance on booze unless you have an experience with God. Okay, and so what Edinger talked about in Encounter with the Greater Personality was that you have to have this experience with the greater personality. Okay, that's the duality between the ego and the self. But you have to have this experience, okay, which we have previously called a religious experience, which I experienced in front of this camera on January 16th, 2017. And so there's actually a visual record of me having an experience with something Bill said on video, okay, from this group, okay. But in order to have such a religious experience, and that was a minor one compared to the bigger ones, okay, but it's an experience of emotion. So what Edinger says in that lecture is that there's no need for a creed, okay? If you've had the experience, you will get it, you will grok it, okay? And all of us at this table have at least said that we've had these experiences. I definitely have, and I had one on video, so I can't deny it. Okay. And I'll take the rest of you at your word. Okay, but the point is that that's an experience. That's an experience with God, in a way. Okay, and in the way that Dr. Jung is talking about, in the God image sense. Okay,
that's in the lecture that's on YouTube.
that's in the Edinger lecture.